Welcome to my channel. Today we're going to be reading from a subreddit. Let's jump into it. Our next post is from a user. The shower that texted me. This happened back when I was about 20 years old and living with 3 roommates in an apartment complex in Salt Lake City, Utah. Our apartment was pretty nice for what we were paying. It had a decent-sized living room, a huge kitchen, and 2 bathrooms. But one of the bathrooms was always having problems. The shower head would get clogged all the time, and the water pressure was terrible. So my roommate decided to install a new smart shower head. He said it would connect to our phones and would let us know if there were any leaks or issues, and could also monitor the water pressure and flow. I thought it was kind of stupid, but whatever. My roommates are like that. And it wasn't really affecting me since I barely used that bathroom. Fast forward a couple months, it's around 6 a.m. and I'm getting ready to leave for work. I check my phone and I see a text saying water running. 17 minutes. I thought it was weird because I wasn't home and neither were any of my roommates. We were all out the night before, and none of us had left the apartment unlocked. I opened up the app on my phone and it showed the live feed from the shower. There was a guy in the shower washing himself, but how the hell did he get in? Is this some kind of elaborate prank by one of my roommates? I don't know. I didn't think they were that funny, and I certainly wasn't gone. Nah, stick around to find out. So I texted back, "What the hell?" And the guy immediately turned off the water and stopped the stream. Now I'm worried. Why would he do that? Did I just expose myself to a burglar or a stalker? Maybe even a serial killer. Then I hear a knock on the door and someone says, "Hey, you got a minute?" Which was our building manager's usual line when he needed to get into someone's apartment. I open the door and he walks right in without even waiting for me to respond. I quickly try to explain the situation to him, but he just starts laughing. Apparently, the maintenance request for the shower had gone through to him, and he'd been meaning to come over and fix it. I guess he must have gotten my roommate's number and called him instead of emailing the whole apartment. But then my roommate left the shower on and went out for the night. So the maintenance guy went back to the apartment and saw that the front door was locked, so he let himself in through the patio door. He fixed the shower, apologized for coming in late at night, and left. No big deal, right? Well, not exactly. A few days later, I'm laying in bed trying to sleep, but I can't because I keep hearing strange noises in the apartment. I hear footsteps in the kitchen and the shower faucet turning on and off. At first I thought it was my roommates, but they were both asleep in their rooms. And then I remembered that the apartment above ours had recently been vacated. They had unstarted the process of finding new tenants yet, so I figured it was probably just some animals. A couple weeks go by, and the strange activity continues. I finally decide to confront whoever it is. I grab a baseball bat and go out into the hallway to see what's going on. As I'm walking down the hallway, start to hear knocking sounds, and I continue to follow the noise until I reach the vacant apartment. I slowly open the door and look inside, and there's no one there. I walk further into the apartment and notice that the shower curtain is pulled back and the shower is running. Once again, I tell the person to turn the water off, and they stop immediately. I run into the shower and yell at them to turn the water back on. I want to make sure that they don't think I'm being paranoid or something. The person comes out from behind the shower curtain and reveals themselves as an older woman. She looks at me in shock and says, "Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't know anyone was in there." She goes on to explain that she lives in the apartment below ours, and her shower head had been clogged for a while now. She'd put in a maintenance request, but it took forever for them to get around to fixing it. So she decided to use my shower instead. I explained that we weren't home at the moment and that the apartment was currently vacant, so she should use that shower whenever she wants. I mean, what else was I going to say? "Lady, I know you're technically squatting in my apartment and stealing my water, but I'm busy being stalked by a mysterious figure who turns my shower on in the middle of the night, so I guess you can use it." That was our story. The shower that texted me. I actually read that correctly. The last part was, "So I guess you can use it." And then I realized, the shower that texted you is in the apartment above you. That's why you keep hearing noises. You have a stalker who likes to take very long showers. Obviously, that makes way more sense than the scenario where you had a stalker. But still up, maybe listen to your ears a little bit more than your eyes in the future. I feel like we need to talk about names. When I was reading this story, I kept thinking the op was spelled OP, like the platform. And I was wondering, why is the person telling us this story on Reddit? Like, why do you want to expose yourself? And then I realized, no, it's just a name. It's just a really common name. It's okay. Oh, Op, it's a name. But then I wondered, is it really a name? Could it be OP? I don't know. I mean, if it is OP, I'm sure they'll come back and correct me. OP is probably not OP. But anyways, people, thank you for watching this episode of r/. I told you so. If you liked this video, please hit that thumbs up button and consider subscribing. It helps my channel a lot. Also, if you want to hear more stories like these, I do recommend checking out our podcast. We put out new episodes every Wednesday and Saturday. You can listen on various platforms. Also, we have a Patreon, where if you sign up, you can get some neat perks, such as submitting a story to the podcast and getting a handwritten letter from someone on our team. We love you. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time. Bye. Welcome to my channel. This is the most terrifying drive-thru story that you'll ever hear. A guy was working the drive-thru at a fast food place. It was 3 a.m., so he wasn't surprised when there weren't many customers around. But then he heard a voice. He described it like static coming from the speaker, but he knew no car was there because he could see out the window. So he thought maybe some other drive-thru was close by, and he just couldn't tell because it was so dark. But then the voice spoke. At first he thought it was a prank. It's like some bored teenager who had too much time on their hands. But the voice was very serious, and it said only 3 words. Don't serve the third one. The man tried to laugh it off, thinking how ridiculous the situation was. But what if it wasn't? What if the voice belonged to an actual ghost? Even if it wasn't a ghost, what exactly did it mean? Was someone messing with him? He hoped so. But a minute later, the voice returned. This time it added another sentence. But it still only took 3 words to send chills down his spine. It's not human, it said. Now he was definitely freaked out. But should he tell his manager? He wasn't sure. He just stood there, frozen in fear, while the minutes ticked by. Finally, a car approached. They quickly pressed the button to say, "Hi, welcome to our drive-thru. Please drive up to the next window to place your order," the man in the car said. "Yeah, I just wanted to get some fries." "No, I don't want the burger or the drink. I just want the fries." But something about the voice made the employee nervous. He felt like he shouldn't serve this customer, but he really didn't have a good reason why. So he told the man his total and waited for him to hand over his money. But when the man handed him a bill, something strange happened. Instead of the greasy paper money, he saw a coin. The man handed him a quarter, then another, and another until he gave him 75 cents, way more than the price of the fries. Still, he didn't feel right about this transaction. So he looked back into the car to see what the man was doing. That's when his blood ran cold. The man wasn't human. Well, not entirely anyway. The quarter he'd given him wasn't silver either. It was made of gold. He dropped the coins into the till and turned away quickly. But it wasn't because he suddenly felt normal again. It was because he knew he needed to take action before it was too late. He quickly called his manager to tell him about the weird stuff going on. He described the coins and how they were all gold. But the manager didn't believe him. He said, "You're being ridiculous. We can't accept gold coins as payment. They're illegal tender." The employee argued that he wasn't making it up, but his manager wasn't convinced. So he just told him to forget about it and go back to work. But that's when the second car showed up. Again, the employee pressed the button to say, "Hi, welcome to our drive-thru. Please drive up to the next window to place your order." But the voice beat him to it. It was still whispering through the speaker, but now it was different. This time it said, "You must serve me. It demands respect." The man inside the car was clearly impatient because he honked twice and yelled, "Hello, is anybody there?" The employee swallowed his fear and asked, "What can I get for you?" The man replied, "I want some chicken nuggets, fries, and a Dr. Pepper." After repeating the order back to him, he went to work. But while he collected the food, he kept glancing nervously at the window. He knew the voice would come back, but he hoped it wouldn't say anything too terrible this time. But it did. "Only 2 more left," it whispered, and then it hung up. Now he was in trouble. Not only did he have to deal with the creepiest customer of all time, but his manager would probably fire him for letting a line of cars build up without taking their orders. So he worked as fast as he could, praying the next customer would be normal. But of course they weren't. The moment they pulled up to the speaker, the voice boomed, "Beware the last one. You won't survive." His hands were shaking so much that the bag fell to the ground. What was he supposed to do? He didn't think he could handle much more of this? But then the next customer drove up, gathered all his courage and said, "Hi, welcome to our drive-thru. Please drive up to the next window to place your order." Duh. But the voice cut him off again. This time it wasn't a warning, it was a command. "Serve me now," it hissed, "and bring me the girl." The employee froze. What girl? Which girl? He looked around frantically. There were no girls anywhere. Besides, even if there were, why would it want him to bring one to the window? He didn't know. But he feared the worst. Maybe it would harm her, or worse. He told the man his total, but he never handed over any money. And after a few seconds, the voice came back. "No need for payment. I will take what I want." Before the employee could respond, the man inside the car started digging around in the passenger seat. Was he looking for a weapon? Was he searching for the girl the voice had requested? Or was he getting ready to make a run for it? The employee didn't know. But after what felt like hours, the man finally climbed out of the car and walked towards the window. He looked pale and scared, and his eyes were wild and manic. Then he leaned into the opening and said in a raspy voice, "She's not here, I swear. I don't have her." The employee stared back at him, speechless. Then the man continued, "She was supposed to meet me here, but she never showed up. I don't know where she is, I promise." As he spoke, the employee noticed something strange. The man's mouth wasn't moving, but his voice was coming out anyway. It was like he was speaking telepathically. And that's when it hit him. The man wasn't human. The voice wasn't coming from him at all. It was coming from somewhere else. Somewhere dark and evil. The man continued talking, and his voice grew louder and angrier. "Bring her to me," it commanded. "I demand to see her." The employee was terrified. He knew he had to do something, but what? He couldn't fight the creature. He wasn't strong enough. But then he had an idea. He reached under the counter and grabbed the heaviest thing he could find. It was a bag of potatoes. He held it above his head and shouted, "Get away from the window! Get away from the window right now!" The monster flinched, as if in pain. It recoiled slightly, then disappeared. Just like that, the line at the drive-thru was gone. The employee looked out the window, but he didn't see any cars. Had they been here in the first place? He didn't know. But then he heard a voice. It was weak and shaky, but it was definitely coming from the speaker. "Who are you?" it asked. He took a deep breath and replied, "I'm the one who's going to protect this place from evil things like you." The voice seemed to fade away. "Bring me the girl," it whispered, and then the line went dead. But then the phone on the wall rang, picked it up and said hello. A woman's voice said, "Is everything okay?" "I haven't heard from you in a while, and I'm worried." He told her what had happened. At first she didn't believe him, but when she heard the whispers coming from the speaker, she knew he was telling the truth. She quickly called the police and told them to come to the restaurant right away. She also told them to bring holy water, salt, and a priest. The employee watched as the police cars arrived and surrounded the building. They brought in the priest, who began to bless the area. Then they started to dig up the ground near the drive-thru window. They found a small box buried beneath the surface. Inside the box, they found a diary, as the priest read aloud from the worn pages. They learned the story of a young girl named Mary. She had been in love with a handsome young man, but their families didn't approve of their relationship. So they decided to elope. On the day of their wedding, Mary's family showed up at the church. They were furious that she had betrayed them. In their anger, they dug up the grave where she and her lover were to be buried. Then they scattered her remains in the nearby woods. Her lover, driven mad with grief, cursed the family and vowed that they would pay for what they had done. And now, many years later, the family was being haunted by the ghosts of Mary and her lover. As the priest finished reading, a voice boomed from the speaker. "It's time for you to pay for what you've done." Suddenly the ground shook, and the trees surrounding the restaurant began to rustle. The wind picked up and swirled around the parking lot. The employee and everyone else there screamed in terror as the ghosts of Mary and her lover emerged from the shadows. But the priest raised his cross and shouted, "Begone, you evil spirits! Leave this place at once." The final beware. The ghosts vanished into thin air. The next morning, the employee returned to work. It was hard to believe that the previous night's events had actually happened. The police had questioned him and the other workers, but they couldn't come up with any answers. The diary was gone, as were the ghosts of Mary and her lover. But he knew that the voice from the drive-thru would never truly leave him. And that's when he stopped taking the night shift. Because he knew that once darkness fell, the hungry spirits would return. Do you dare visit this haunted drive-thru? Let me know in the comments below. And if you want to hear more scary stories, stay tuned for more content. See you next time. It was supposed to be one of those unforgettable weekends. 7 college friends, Maya, Luke, Donnie, Eric, Chloe, Nate, and Tasha planned a weekend camping trip deep in the Appalachian Mountains. No cell signal, no city noise, just stars, stories, and beer around the fire. They hadn't all been together since graduation 2 years ago, so it felt like something sacred. They pitched tents beside a glassy lake, surrounded by pines and the echo of birds. The air was crisp. That night, after roasting marshmallows and laughing over dumb college memories, Maya suggested they take a group photo. "Let's get one while we're still sober," she joked. Everyone laughed. Nate propped up his phone on a rock, set the timer, and rushed into the group. They all smiled, hugged, and posed like it was the last photo they'd ever take together. Click. That was that. They didn't check the photo until the next morning. It was Donnie who noticed it first. She was scrolling through Nate's camera roll while they were waiting for coffee to boil. Her thumb froze. "Guys, who is this?" she asked, her voice uneven. Everyone gathered around. There was the photo from last night. Same smiles, same pose. But standing between Chloe and Eric's dead center of the group was a girl none of them remembered. Pale skin, long black hair that fell over her face like wet curtains, a worn white hoodie, hands by her side, head tilted slightly. "Wait, was someone out here with us?" Nate asked, frowning. "No, we were alone," Luke said. They all remembered the same thing. There was no one else at the campsite. No hikers, no nearby tents. Just the 7 of them. Eric zoomed in. Then zoomed in again. Her feet weren't touching the ground. "She's floating," Chloe whispered. Everyone went silent. Then someone said the worst thing they could have said. "She's looking straight at the camera," and she was. With pitch black eyes. They left the campsite an hour later. No one said it out loud, but the group was rattled. Tents were packed in record time. They didn't even wait for breakfast. The woods, once peaceful, now felt heavy. Wrong. As they hiked back toward their cars, Maya stopped in her tracks. "Wait, where's Tasha?" They turned around. She had been behind them just minutes ago, they called out. Again, no answer. Luke and Donnie sprinted back down the trail, screaming her name. Nothing. Not a sound. No crunching leaves. No voice yelling, "I'm here." Just forest. They searched for 3 hours. She was gone. When they finally got back to their cars, they called 911. A search party was launched. Dogs, drones, locals, nothing turned up. But that night, Nate uploaded the group photo to his laptop to send to police. And the girl in the hoodie, she was gone. Only 6 people were in the photo now, as if she had never been there at all. But when Nate opened the folder with the rest of his photos from the trip, he screamed. The girl was in every single picture, sitting by the fire, standing near the lake, peeking from behind a tree. And in one of them, right behind Tasha, smiling. 2 weeks later, things got worse. Luke went missing next. He texted the group chat at 2:13 a.m. "Someone's in my apartment." That was the last anyone heard from him. His door was found unlocked. No signs of struggle. No clues. Just his phone on the floor, screen cracked. Then Chloe. She disappeared after claiming she saw the girl from the photo standing at the end of her hallway, just standing there staring. Police found her front door open and her keys still in the lock. The remaining 4, Maya, Eric, Nate, and Donnie, met up in person. They were terrified, exhausted, but mostly confused. What was this? A ghost? A curse? Eric suggested deleting the photo from everyone's phone, just in case they did. But the next day the photo was back. Same image. Only now, the girl was closer. Standing at the edge of the group. 2 days later, Eric vanished. That night, Donnie got a text from an unknown number. It was a picture. The original group selfie. Only this time, she was the one missing from it. And the girl in the hoodie, now standing in Danny's place. Smiling. He thought it was just a rental. Then the house started talking like him. David Rourke didn't usually believe in strange things. He was a software engineer from Boston. Logical, efficient, and, as his friends liked to joke, all ones and zeros. So when he found a month-to-month rental in rural Maine for half the usual price, he chalked it up to luck and booked it immediately. He wanted quiet, peace, and maybe time to figure out why his life felt like it had started glitching. The house sat alone at the edge of a pine forest on Loon Hollow Road. Gray two-story, plain siding. The ad had promised privacy and silence. When David arrived on a rainy Tuesday, silence is exactly what greeted him. No neighbors, no traffic, no wind. Even the birds were oddly absent. He unlocked the front door and stepped inside. The air was cold. Not cold like no one's been here in a while. Cold like it didn't want him there, he said mostly to himself. I'm just looking as he walked through the empty living room. Then it happened. A quiet click. Then a voice from the wall. I'm just looking. His voice. Perfectly mimicked, but half a second behind. He froze. Hello? He called out, trying to make sense of what he'd heard. There were no visible speakers, no electronics, no thermostat, no sign of life. It must have been a fluke. A motion sensor triggering an old intercom, maybe? A leftover recording? He turned to leave. He hadn't even set down his bag. But just as he reached for the door handle, the voice came again. Don't leave me again. David didn't sleep that night. Checked every wall, vent, and outlet for a speaker system. Nothing. No wires, no echo dots, no smart home devices. He even pulled off a vent cover and shined his phone flashlight into the wall cavity. Empty. The next morning, he called the rental agent. She picked up with a chipper voice. I just have one weird question, he said. Is there like a recording system in the house? She paused. No, not that I know of. We've never had complaints before. In fact, most renters leave early because they say it's too quiet. David laughed nervously. Yeah, quiet's good. After the call, he sat on the edge of the mattress in the upstairs bedroom. The closet door creaked open slightly. David stood. Hello? He said again. This time the wall whispered back, low and close. Hello? Not exactly the same. It sounded ... slower, like the words were being digested before repeating. His skin crawled. He opened the closet door. No. It was empty except for an old nail and a folded scrap of yellow paper shoved into the corner. He unfolded it. Two stick figures stood in front of the same house he was in. One small, one tall, both smiling. Above them was a red sun and a speech bubble that read, Come home, Daddy. He dropped the paper. He had no kids. That night, David set up his laptop to record audio. He wanted proof. Maybe it was all in his head, or maybe somehow it wasn't. He started the recording and left the room. Said nothing. It made no sound. The next morning, he played it back. The first few minutes were quiet, then footsteps, but not his. These were heavier, slower, dragging. And then, at the 23-minute mark, a voice, Please, don't go. Please don't go. Please don't go. Over and over, a whisper. It sounded like his voice, but distorted. Sad, panicked, like someone begging from deep inside a tunnel. Then a pause. Then the voice changed. I won't let you leave this time. David slammed the laptop shut. The screen glitched before turning black. Not just frozen fried. The recording file vanished before his eyes. He rushed to his car, but the engine didn't turn over. Dead battery or something worse. His phone had no signal. The house behind him seemed to watch. The next day, something shifted. David woke up on the couch. Not because he fell asleep there, but because it was like he had always lived there. There were pictures on the wall. Boy, maybe 6 years old, sitting on David's shoulders. His face was blurred, but David felt something in his chest. Not recognition, regret. The kitchen had a mug he didn't bring. It said number 1 Dad. He opened a cabinet and found a toy robot worn and dusty. The voice returned, but not from the wall this time, from behind him. I waited, it said. Not an echo, a real voice. David turned. The boy stood in the hallway, pale barefoot, with eyes that didn't blink. You left, the boy said. You forgot me, but I remembered you. David's heart raced. I don't know who you are, the boy pointed to the wall. The paint began to peel, revealing names scratched beneath the surface. Over and over, David Rourke. David Rourke came home. He stayed this time. Don't belong here, David whispered. The boy shook his head. You always have. The house just remembers better than you. The front door slammed shut. 3 weeks later, the property was listed again. Quiet rental, newly updated, perfect for a peaceful getaway. The agent showed a new tenant around. She paused in the living room. That's weird, the tenant said. Did someone say something? Agent shook her head. Nope, just the old walls. They creak. But behind the walls, a voice quietly echoed. I'm just looking. And 5 seconds later, don't leave me again. Welcome to my channel. Today we will be reading from the confusing Reddit. So let's jump into it. The stranger who knew my schedule. This happened about 5 years ago when I lived in Florida. I am a very private person with a small group of friends, and I kept to myself mostly. I had recently moved to Florida for college, and I was still getting used to the area. I had just started at a community college, and I was taking classes online until I got situated. One day I was laying in bed on my phone, and I got a text that read, "Do I miss your 9:15 coffee run?" I thought it was weird, but I didn't think much of it. The next day I got the same text, but this time it said, "Red sweater today. Cute." I was confused because I had only told one friend that I had a new red sweater, and that was for an online class I was taking. I hadn't worn it yet. I decided to wear the red sweater just to make sure it wasn't her. When I got to school, I saw that I had gotten another message that said, "Good choice of sweater. You look cute in it." I was freaked out because there was no way that she could have known I was wearing the red sweater. I had only worn it once 2 years prior. I tried to brush it off, but I couldn't help but feel creeped out by it. I went home and decided to change up my routine a bit to try to throw off whoever was texting me. For the next few days, I would leave the house at different times and take different routes to the store, and even changed my online classes to different days. But every time I left the house, I would get a text saying something like, "You left your phone at home today. Smart." Or "Don't forget to grab some milk on the way back." It was so confusing. I didn't know how this person knew what I was doing. And one day I got a text that read, "You forgot your keys today, silly." I was sitting in my room when I got the text, and I looked down at my hand and I realized that I was holding my keys. Then it hit me. Whoever was messaging me was trying to tell me that I had forgotten my keys, not that they were watching me. I ran to the window and I looked out to see if I could see anyone. I live in a duplex, and our front doors face each other. Maybe someone had seen me leave my keys on the counter as I walked out the door, but what I saw made my blood run cold. It was the girl that had taken the picture of me in my red sweater. Her name is Brittany. She lives across from me, and she was standing in her doorway taking pictures of me. I slammed the door shut and I went inside. I didn't know what to do. Should I confront her? Should I call the cops? I decided to do some snooping around first. The next time I went to the store, I took a different route, and I purposely took my phone off of silent so that I could hear if I got any messages. I didn't get any, which was unusual. Then I remembered that Brittany had mentioned something about my dog in one of the messages. I had only told one person that I had a dog, and that was my roommate. She hadn't been home for the past few weeks. Maybe she was texting me from her house. When I got home, I went straight to my front door, and I began knocking. I knocked a few times, and I called out for her. Finally, I heard footsteps coming toward the door. When she opened it, she looked surprised. "What are you doing here?" she asked. "Are you texting me?" I asked. "What?" she said innocently. "Was someone texting you?" "No, I don't know what you're talking about," she said. Then she quickly closed the door in my face. I was so frustrated. Why was she acting like that? Decided to go to her door. As I was walking over there, I noticed that she had put up a new Instagram post. I recognized the background. It was my duplex. I clicked on her page and I saw that she had posted a picture of my front door and she had tagged our address. I was so angry. How could she do this to me? To be honest, I don't know what I expected her to say. Maybe she would apologize, or maybe she would tell me that she was sorry for scaring me, or instead she did something that made me hate her even more. "Oh, hey there. Sorry that I scared you before. Wanted to make sure that you were okay. Thought you might have been home alone. And wanted to make sure you were okay. I'm sorry." "What was that?" "I'm sorry. What was that?" I yelled. She looked at me in shock. "How did you know?" I asked. "Know what?" she said. "That you've been texting me all this time?" I said. Oh, I don't know what you're talking about, she stammered. Well, I hope that Reddit will bring justice to this story. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please leave a like. Welcome to my channel. Today we will go to Chicago. We'll talk about an apartment. This apartment has 2 front doors. Yes, you heard that right, 2 front doors. Let's go there and find out what is going on. Our story begins in Chicago. A guy named Kyle just moved here from South Carolina. He found this cool loft downtown. It was cheap and big, it had high ceilings and huge windows. It was perfect for a young guy like Kyle who works as a graphic designer. He likes his new home very much. Everything was great until he noticed those 2 front doors. When Kyle signed the lease, he asked the landlord about the second door. The landlord said that it was just another entrance to the apartment. It was nice but kind of strange. Kyle thought that it was interesting, but he didn't think it was a problem. Till one night he woke up and he heard someone knocking from the inside of his apartment. Of course, Kyle was very scared. Called the police, but they couldn't do anything because the door was locked from the inside. So the police told him to just break the door open and go check. But Kyle didn't want to do that because he was afraid that whoever was in there might be dangerous, so he decided to wait until morning. The next day, Kyle called his landlord, told him everything, and asked if he could please change the lock so he could feel safer. The landlord said no way and hung up on him. Kyle was very upset. Didn't understand why the landlord didn't want to help him, so he decided to send a text message. He wrote, "You are the worst landlord ever. If you don't respond right now, I am calling the police." The landlord saw the message, but he didn't reply. He just blocked Kyle from his phone. So at that point, Kyle realized that he needed to take matters into his own hands. He wanted to get into that room no matter what. He looked everywhere for a key, but he couldn't find one. Then he went to the hardware store and bought a bunch of stuff to try to break in. He tried to kick the door, but it was very strong. He tried to break the lock, but it wouldn't open. Kyle was very frustrated, but then he had an idea. He went back to the store and bought a big hammer. Then he started hitting the door really hard. The whole building shook, but that door wouldn't open. And that's when Kyle heard a voice. The voice said, "What are you doing?" Startled, Kyle stopped and looked around. The voice said again, "What are you trying to do?" Kyle couldn't believe what he was hearing. He opened the door and shouted, "Who's there?" But there was no one there. Then Kyle heard a knock from inside the room. Kyle was very frightened, but he opened the door slowly. To his surprise, the room was empty. There was nothing there except for a pile of old clothes and a dusty TV. Kyle felt like he was going crazy. Maybe he had imagined the whole thing. But then he heard the voice again. It said, "Did you check under the TV?" Confused, Kyle walked over to the TV and started to lift it. It was very heavy, but he managed to move it just a little. And underneath he found a key. He took the key and ran to the other door. It was the front door of the apartment. He inserted the key and opened the door. Right. On the other side was another hallway. No. Couldn't believe what he had just found. It was like a secret passage. But where did it lead? He walked down the hallway and found another door, opened it, and stepped outside. It was the middle of the night, but Kyle could see where the passage led. It went to a parking lot behind the apartment building. Kyle was very tired. He had been through a lot that day, so he decided to go back home. But before he did, he looked around to see if anyone was following him. When he turned around, he saw a man standing by the second door. The man was tall and thin, and he was staring at Kyle. Kyle was very scared, but he tried to stay calm. "Do we know each other?" he asked. The man just kept staring at him, and he started to walk toward Kyle. Kyle turned and ran as fast as he could. The next day, Kyle went to the police station, told them everything, but they didn't believe him. They thought it was all a crazy story. They told him to forget about it, but Kyle knew that he couldn't do that. He was sure that the man was following him, and he was afraid that something bad would happen. Then he received a text message from his landlord. It said, "If it starts talking, don't answer. That's not you." Oh my God, the scariest Uber story I've ever heard. This happened to a woman in LA. She had a night out with her girlfriends, and when it was time to go, she called for an Uber. So when she stepped outside, her phone pinged. It said, "Your driver is arriving." But then she saw the car and she was like, "Wait a minute, that car has been sitting there the entire time. The engine was running. There was no driver." So she gets, a little bit closer. She's like, "What the hell?" And that's when the back door opens and a creepy-ass voice says, "You're late." I don't even want to know what the rest of the story is. That's terrifying. There's a few things wrong with this story. First off, if your Uber driver is sitting there with the engine running, why are they not in the front seat? You know, if you reparked in a rideshare lane or whatever and you waiting for your passenger to get in the car, you sit in the front seat, you don't sit in the back seat. It's like if somebody's back there, I'm going to be very uncomfortable. Secondly, why is the back door open? If you're expecting somebody to get in your car, you don't open the back door. You open the front door and you're like, hey, get in the car. Or you just drive up to him and say, hey, get in the car. What are you doing opening the back door? And thirdly, this is the big one. Why are you talking? It's like I don't understand. Why would you talk? If somebody hails an Uber and the car pulls up, do you think the first thing you should do is roll down your window and say, hey, how's it going? No, you don't do that. Guess, if I see a passenger outside of my window, I don't even look at them. I keep my eyes on the road. I look at my phone, which I have mounted in front of me, and I see where they are, and I tell them, hey, I'm right here. They come to my window and I ask them, hey, is this your first time using Uber? They're like, yeah. And I'll give them a little tutorial on how it works. Then they get in the car and we leave. That's how it goes down. We don't talk. Well, maybe I'll make small talk sometimes, but usually I'm just like, is this your first time using Uber? If they say yes, I'll give them a little tutorial and then we go from there. But I am never, ever, ever rolling down my window and saying, hey, how's it going? When I see somebody outside of my car, nope, no. Keep your mouth shut. Just look at your phone. See where they are, and then acknowledge them by either honking your horn or flashing your high beams, and then just driving up there and getting them in the car. That's it. You don't talk to strangers, especially if it's a woman in a car with a bunch of other women inside of it. Nope, that's not okay. Now listen, if you are a woman and you are taking an Uber or a Lyft late at night, I totally understand why you would want to have the windows up and you would want to be in the front seat. Safety, right? Totally get it. If you are a man, and let's be honest, this story probably happened with a male Uber driver. There is no reason for you to have the back door open and then talk to a stranger and be like, hey, you're late. That's crazy. So what do you think? Have you ever had a weird Uber experience? Let me know in the comments below. Also, please make sure to like and subscribe. Thank you so much for watching. Scary stories, scary sounds. This happened to a man who used a sleep tracker that records your movement and breathing while you asleep. One night he was awoken in the middle of the night by what sounded like a whisper right next to his ear. He checked the time on his phone and it was 3:17 in the morning. The whisper had said, why is he still pretending to be asleep? This man lives alone. No one else was in the bed with him. He decided to investigate the sound further, and the next morning he found his front door wide open. It was clear that someone had snuck into his home in the middle of the night, but how? He immediately went to check his security footage, but unfortunately the only thing that the intruder had stolen was his security footage hard drive. So there were no videos of the incident or any evidence as to who could have done this. Now, I don't know about you, but if something like this happened to me, I would not be able to go back to sleep after that. I think I would spend the rest of the night just sitting up in my bed staring at the walls, waiting to hear a creak or a whisper or anything. But some people manage to fall back asleep after traumatic events like this. It's called sleep onset latency. And according to research, the average person falls back asleep within 20 minutes when they've been awoken during the night. However, it can take some people hours. And those are the kind of people who are more likely to report an increase in anxiety and stress after being woken up. And even though this man couldn't sleep after hearing that whisper, it seems like he did fall back asleep at some point, because the next morning when he woke up, he got out of bed and started making breakfast like he normally does. That's a good sign, right? I mean, maybe he was tired enough that he didn't even realize that his door was open, or maybe he was too focused on his breakfast, trying to keep his mind off of what happened the night before. But eventually he did notice that his door was open, and then he remembered the whole terrifying ordeal from the night before. He immediately called the police, but as I mentioned before, the intruder had also taken his security footage hard drive, which meant that there was no evidence left behind and no way to figure out who it was that had entered his home in the middle of the night. The man then posted about the event on Reddit asking for advice. Some people suggested that he should have armed himself with a gun and shot the intruder, but personally, I think that's a pretty extreme measure to take. I mean, what are the chances that an intruder is going to break into your house in the middle of the night, say something creepy to you, and then leave without stealing anything? Pretty low, right? I think it is much more likely that if an intruder had broken into this guy's house in the middle of the night, they would have just started rummaging through his stuff, stealing whatever they could find, and then running away. So I don't think arming himself would have been very helpful in this situation. So then others on Reddit suggested that he should just forget about it and move on. But I think that's bad advice too, because why let this person get away with this behavior? What if they do it again? And this time they might not whisper first. They might just attack you while you're sleeping. In my opinion, I think the best course of action would be to post about it online and see if anyone recognizes the voice. If you listen closely to the audio clip, it doesn't really sound like a man or a woman. It sounds like a child. So maybe it was a kid who was watching this man's house and knew that he lived alone. Maybe they thought it would be funny to sneak in and try to scare him. Or maybe it was someone who had ill intentions, but thankfully changed their mind last minute and decided not to hurt him. Although I do have to say that if someone breaks into your house, even if they don't hurt you, they've still committed a crime, and you should still press charges. It doesn't matter if they took something or if they didn't take something. The fact is, they trespassed onto your property, and that's illegal. I don't know about you, but that's definitely something that would wake me up. Maybe if I was half asleep, I wouldn't be scared, but if someone was standing over me whispering in my ear, I would definitely be scared. Comment down below if you'd be scared too, or maybe I'm just overreacting here. Also, comment your favorite type of scary story because I love reading them and I'm always looking for inspiration for new videos. I'll see you next time. Bye. Josh and Mia had only lived in their Phoenix condo for 3 months. It was a modern place with floor-to-ceiling windows, a minimalist kitchen, and their favorite addition, a brand new smart TV mounted to the living room wall. They didn't watch much cable, mostly Netflix, YouTube, or sports. It started on a quiet Tuesday night. Josh was brushing his teeth when Mia called from the living room. "Did you leave the TV on?" Josh walked in puzzled. The screen was lit up, but not playing anything they recognized. There was static crackling faintly behind an old VHS-style recording, grainy and washed out like it came from the 90s. A little girl stood in the middle of the screen, her hands fidgeting, her dress old-fashioned and too big for her frame. The camcorder timestamp was frozen, September 19th, 1997, 3:42 p.m. Before they could say anything, the girl on the screen spoke. "Please don't change the channel," she said. "I don't want to go back." Then she smiled, and the screen froze. No sound, no movement, just the girl's face locked in a smile. At first they thought it was a prank or a glitch, maybe some kind of weird ad. Josh tried to exit the app. The remote didn't work. He rebooted the TV, still frozen. The girl's image stared back, unmoving. Mia Googled everything she could. TV frozen on creepy girl, smart TV possession, VHS ghosts on YouTube. Nothing helpful came up. Every attempt to power off the TV failed. Even the buttons on the side wouldn't respond. They tried covering the screen with a blanket. They could still feel her eyes behind it. It's like her image had left the screen and burned into the room itself. And then it got worse. At around midnight, the lights in the hallway began to flicker, dramatically just enough to notice. The thermostat changed by itself, set to 66 when neither of them touched it. Their phones lost signal inside the apartment, even though the building had perfect reception. But the most chilling part? The video was still stuck. The girl still smiling. After 6 hours, Josh had had enough. Stood up, walked over, and pulled the power cord from the wall, and that's when it happened. The second the cord came out, the girl on screen blinked. Not a frame glitch, not static. A real blink. Her expression changed too, like she knew they were watching, like she'd been watching them back the whole time. Then the screen went black. For real this time. They stood there, not speaking. "Nope," Mia said. "Nope, that's not normal." They spent the rest of the night in their car parked 2 blocks away. They didn't sleep. The next day, they returned to the apartment with their landlord and a tech repair guy. The TV remained unplugged, but when the tech tested the input, he found something strange. "No signal history," he said. "It's like the device never received any source input. Nothing played at all." They checked the smart TV's log. No app usage, no casting history, no YouTube, no screen mirroring, nothing. Mia wanted to throw the TV out, but Josh insisted they wait. That night, as they sat in the living room with every light on, the screen turned on by itself again. No girl, no VHS frame, just a blank white screen. And a single sentence appeared at the bottom. I said I didn't want to go back. They unplugged the TV again, and it blinked. Welcome to my channel. Today we have creepypastas. So, let's begin. The box that knew my name. I was 28 years old and living alone for the first time in a one-bedroom apartment in a decent part of town. It was nothing fancy, but it was mine. One evening I came home from work to a small cardboard package on my porch. The box was slightly bigger than a shoebox and wrapped in brown tape. There was no return address or any markings on it at all. I brought it inside, set it on the kitchen table, and went to watch some TV. Around 11 p.m. I got up to use the bathroom, and that's when I noticed the box had moved. I walked over and picked it up. As I did, a single Polaroid photo slid out. I stared at it. It was a picture of me sleeping in my bed. The photo had been taken from above and to the side, like from my doorway. I felt a chill run down my spine. I tried to remember if I'd posted anything about my new place online, but I couldn't think of anything. As I turned the box over, I saw a piece of paper taped to the back. I peeled it off and unfolded it. Written in what looked like lipstick on the paper, it said, "This isn't the first one I took." I immediately called the police, who told me to hold on to the box and the photo until they arrived. When they came, they dusted for fingerprints, but there were none. The box and the photo had been sitting out in the rain, so by the time they arrived, the photo was creased and soggy, and the box was soaked. The lipstick message was smeared beyond reading. They also checked the security footage, which showed the box just appearing on the porch at 9:17 p.m. out of nowhere. It vanished after that. No one had entered my property. There were no signs of forced entry. The officers left, and I spent the night watching horror movies and drinking. The next morning, still shaky from the night before, I went to throw the box away. As I opened it, a second photo slid out. This one showed my front door with what I realized was lipstick smeared across the lens. I screamed and dropped the box. The photo landed face down on the floor. I didn't pick it up. I didn't want to see the image on it, but I knew what it was. I could tell by the way the light was hitting the doorknob and the mail slot. I knew that if I stood in that same spot and shone a flashlight through the slot, the beam would hit the doorknob just like it did in the photo. I did just that, and sure enough, the beam hit the knob. I called the police again, but this time I didn't bother making a report. I just wanted them to come and check the house again, which they did. But other than finding a few fingerprints in the dust on my windowsills, they found nothing. The lipstick message was now unreadable. The photos were ruined, and the box was just an empty, soggy mess. They dusted for fingerprints again, but it was too late. The evidence was gone. I didn't even bother asking them to check the security footage again. I knew what it would look like. I never got any more boxes. I moved out of that apartment 2 years ago, and I still do, and know how the pictures were taken or how the box appeared on my porch. Every time I think I've got it all figured out, I find another clue that makes me question everything. Even now, years later, sometimes when I'm lying in bed at night, I swear I can hear a knock at my door. But when I get up and go to check, there's nothing there. So, anyone else? No, okay, just me. I'll be back with more stories soon, so stay tuned. Thanks for watching. This is the terrifying story of the town that isn't on any map. Our story begins in rural New Hampshire, where one fateful night a driver got lost. As darkness began to fall, he turned onto a deserted road. It was only then he noticed the sign reading, "Welcome to Ashwood.
Population
239. He had never seen this town before, but figured it was just a small community off the beaten path. After all, he was in New Hampshire, a state known for its scenic countryside and quaint small towns. But as he ventured deeper into Ashwood, he couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. The old houses seemed to stare back at him with their dark windows like vacant eyes. The street lamps flickered overhead, casting long shadows that danced ominously in the night. Then his cell phone signal disappeared. Lost and alone in a town without a single soul in sight, he finally came across a house with a porch light on. Hope surged through him. Maybe someone could help him figure out where he was and how to get back on track. As he knocked on the door, he could hear the sound of footsteps inside. Then just as suddenly, everything went silent. Just when he was about to knock again, the front door opened slowly, as if inviting him in. But when he reached out to grab the doorknob, a strange force seemed to pull him back. As he hesitated, the door swung shut and the light on the porch went out, plunging him into darkness. With a growing sense of dread, he turned around and stumbled back to his car. He started the engine and sped away from the house and the town of Ashwood. But the more he drove, the more he felt like something was following him. He could have sworn he heard voices whispering his name from the trees lining the road. Then he saw it, the rearview mirror. A shadowy figure seemed to emerge from the darkness, running alongside his car. He slammed on the brakes and turned around, but when he looked back, there was nothing there. Shaken by what he had seen, he tried to convince himself that it was just a trick of the light. But as the days passed, he couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching him. He tried to go back to Ashwood the next day, but no matter how hard he tried, he couldn't find the town. To his horror, it seemed to have vanished from existence. He checked his GPS, but it showed nothing but woods. And when he asked locals, they had no idea what he was talking about. Had he imagined the whole thing? Was it a dream? But then he remembered the voice. Someone had actually spoken to him. A woman's voice. And he knew he wasn't crazy. Determined to uncover the truth, he delved into old maps and town records, but found no mention of Ashwood or any other town that matched its description. Some people even told him that Ashwood was supposed to be a secret town, only visible to those who were lost. But no one knew exactly what it was, or why it appeared and disappeared at will. And so, the mystery of the town that isn't on any map continues to this day. Some say it's just a legend, while others believe it's a portal to another dimension. What do you think? Is there somewhere you've been that shouldn't be there? Or is there somewhere you're trying to get to that shouldn't be there? Let me know in the comments. And thank you for watching my channel. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so and join our growing family, so you won't miss any of our awesome videos. Have you ever gotten lost in the woods? Share your experience with us in the comments below. I'm eager to hear your stories. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the thumbs up button. It really helps us grow and reach more people. We've got plenty more videos coming your way, so stay tuned. Wishing you a wonderful day filled with happiness and laughter. Goodbye. Welcome to my channel. Today I will be reading from the r/glitch_in_the_matrix subreddit. So let's jump into it. The title of this story is The Face in the Static. So the original poster, or OP for short, is a woman who had recently moved into a new apartment complex. She moved into an apartment that had a baby monitor already set up in the nursery. For those who don't know, a baby monitor is basically like a TV set that allows you to view your baby while they are sleeping. Usually these monitors have a camera attached to them, and you can either have the camera in the room with the baby, or in another room so you can hear and see the baby without going into their room. But it has a screen, so you can still see what's going on. Anyway, she said that for the first few weeks everything was normal. Then one night she woke up to the monitor starting to glitch. And by glitch she means that instead of showing the normal static of the snow, when there isn't anything being picked up by the camera, it would show a sort of white noise of the television static. And then she would hear the faint cries of a baby. But it wasn't her baby. Her baby was in the room with her. She would try to ignore it, but then one night she turned on the monitor to see a man's face. It was just his face, and he was crying. That was the only thing on the screen. There was no body or anything else on the monitor, just the face of this crying man. She said that she was creeped out, but not too worried about it. So she tried to tell herself that it was just some kind of interference from a neighboring apartment. She thought maybe someone had a TV on in the apartment next door, and it was just picking it up somehow. Well, the next morning after this happened, she went outside to get the mail, and noticed that one of the apartments directly below hers had a new for rent sign on their door. She didn't think much of it and went back inside. That evening, she turned on the monitor again to check on her baby, and it was back to normal, just showing the static and the crying baby noises. But the next morning, she went to go check on her neighbors again, and she noticed that their apartment door no longer had a for rent sign on it, now had a beware of dog sign. She found it odd, but just chalked it up to the fact that people were weird and went about her day. Well, the next night, she was woken up again to the monitor glitching, and she turned it on to see the same man from before. He was sitting there crying. The strange thing was that at the same time this happened the night before, she heard a knock on her door. She opened it and saw two police officers standing there asking if everything was okay because they had gotten a noise complaint from the apartment below her. She told the officers that everything was fine, and they left. She thinks now that whoever lived in the apartment below her must have been the man from the monitor, and that he was trying to get her attention by crying out to her through the television static. Well, that was the end of the story. So she never saw the man on the monitor again, but the weird coincidences kept happening. The next morning after the police were called, she went to go check on her downstairs neighbors again, and she noticed that the "Beware of Dog" sign was gone, and there was a new one that read, "Do not disturb." She found it strange that the sign had changed overnight, but again, she just chalked it up to weird neighbors and went about her life. Then one night she was woken up by her monitor glitching. Again, it was the middle of the night, around 2:59 a.m., just like the other times. And she looked over to see that the monitor was showing the white static, and she could hear the crying of a baby. But something was different this time. She could hear her downstairs neighbors talking loudly, and she could hear them moving around. And the baby crying on the monitor matched the exact sounds her neighbors were making. In the morning after this happened, she went downstairs to find her neighbors lying dead on the floor. She said that it was a horrible scene, but she couldn't call the police because they were both still warm. It meant that they had only just died. When the paramedics and police showed up, they asked her if she had called them, because they had gotten a noise complaint from an apartment above theirs. The woman had no idea that her neighbors had been making so much noise, and she certainly didn't call the police. It seemed like her neighbors were trying to tell her something through the monitor, but she just kept ignoring them. And that is the end of the story. Thank you for listening. And if you like this kind of content, please subscribe. I put out new videos every single day. If you want to keep listening to more stories, I highly recommend the r/glitch_in_the_matrix subreddit. There are many other stories on there just like this one, so I'll leave a link to that down in the description. If you want to watch more videos from me, I put out new videos every single day, so there should be something for you to watch. Thank you again for watching and listening, and I'll see you in the next one.